Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. You are here yet again for another Booktube Prize Translated Fiction 2022 book review. This is my last book. It's probably not the last review you will see. I've been getting these up as I can get them edited and what's easiest to do. But for me, it's the last one. And this is late September, so I don't actually know who has won yet. And I can forecast to you that I do hope it's not this book. And that book is Disquiet by Zulfu Livanelli and translated by Brendan Freely from the Turkish. So I do have to say, going in, I actually had some foreknowledge about this from Jen from Remembered Reads. I didn't specifically avoid hearing anything about any of my books, but I tried to not hear like a lot of plot and individual assessment. However, Jen had some interesting things to share about specifically the translation. There was a really odd translation decision made about this book in terms of actually changing the setting of a key part of the book, and it makes no sense. Having read it now, it's a weaker book for that translation choice because there are things sprinkled throughout this book that would tie in to the original setting and make it a stronger connection. And instead they're just sort of floating out there and very random. And so I don't really understand that choice. But I did try to separate my decisions about this book and my assessment of it from any foreknowledge or that. As I said, I do think that was probably the wrong choice, but I'm not going to misgrade it because I don't know what the driver was for that choice. But going into the plot, I would say the plot had equally as many problems for me. It was just full of kind of poor decisions that weakened the story. So what is the plot? The plot is this journalist, I think his name is Ibrahim, but it's not really important because he's just a vehicle for us. He's a perspective character for the most part, and he's not actually a key to any of the story that's happening. He's just eyes to see it through. And I think that is one of the weak parts. We should have been in a different perspective. So he is hearing about his childhood friend, Hussein, who was living abroad as well. They both no longer live in their hometown, but Hussein has been killed as a result of a hate crime. And now Ibrahim is traveling back to both of their hometown. He hadn't seen him in years, and everyone is very surprised to see him there. It comes across a little bit like he's exploiting the situation to maybe get some journalism out of this. I don't know. But once he gets there, he hears kind of this wild story about what has happened with Hussein over the past few years, that he was betrothed to this really wonderful, gorgeous woman, and he threw her off in order to chase after this refugee woman who was not particularly attractive. They really make sure to hammer that home, and is a single mother with a blind child. So we're then caught up in him chasing the thread of this refugee woman to find out about their relationship. And it's clear she doesn't really want to be found based on how difficult it is proving for him to find her. And all along, he's using his journalistic efforts and opportunities. At one point, he's sent to a refugee camp because Angelina Jolie happens to be visiting there, and so it's an opportunity for him to cover that. And so there are these coincidences like that tie into him continuing to chase this story. And it's not really clear to me what is driving him actually going after this. There doesn't seem to be any emotional draw. He doesn't actually give any sense of caring about Hussein's story. So I didn't feel that connection. And that was probably the biggest problem with this for me, is throughout the reading experience, I didn't feel connected to either his character or any of the other characters that he was, meant to have strong feelings for, or were going through really difficult times. It was just emotionless. I kept feeling like, well, I'm reading words on a page and they do follow one after the other, but I just do not feel any attachment to anything that's going on. So that was very much my reading experience. it was so hard to have that reading experience because the things that are happening are so harrowing. We see the attacks of ISIS on this minority group, a minority religion, the Yazidi people, and this doesn't discuss too much about that. In fact, it trivializes the religion. It kind of makes a joke out of it multiple times, and that seemed, again, a really poor choice to me. There were multiple things that were referenced in here that I actually had to look up because they're very niche religious elements to this specific religion. And meanwhile, all of the other characters are Muslim, and they do trivialize this religion just as much. So it seems like this was an opportunity to not do that, not portray this marginalized group in that way, and bring some understanding to a majority group of Muslim readers, potentially. But it doesn't do that. It does implore us with this horrible plight where ISIS is attacking this minority group, and they are justifying rape and murder through their religion and showing multiple times over and over how they can argue it away, because if they do it in these certain legalistic manners, then it's okay. It's been signed off by their caliphate. And the book kind of hand waves it away with the other characters who are also Muslims and from the same religion. They basically just sort of all go, well, they're doing it wrong. They're not real Muslims, So it's very much a no true Scotsman argument about these horrible acts, and just saying, well, we're the same religion, but they're just doing it wrong. And our religion is really a different thing. And it doesn't ever reconcile with that at all at any point in this book. So I thought that was, again, a huge miss, because we're talking so much about religious persecution as a result of this story and what has led to these terrible refugee situations. And it's not ever actually reckoning with the root cause and the source. So it feels very not self-aware. And then we have Meliknaz's story, who is the refugee woman. And we don't really get very much from her side. She's very silent through all of this, through all of these traumas. We're getting secondhand information about the horrors she's seen and what she's had to do to survive. And the book kind of wraps up in a way that just really turned me off. Again, it was just such a miss for me that our character has been chasing this woman for this whole time, trying to find out things that happened in her life and get her story. And so he's become kind of just enamored with her to the point that it's a little ridiculous, where like even after everything horrible he's heard about, like he wants to kind of pursue her and feels tender for her and whatnot. And it just seems ridiculous that's the thing that springs to his mind. And then the other thing that springs to his mind is, well, gosh, this woman is just so strong. I don't understand how someone gets this strong. And he's thinking about this and it's like, do you not remember all the horrible things you heard from other people about what she had to overcome to be here? Because if she weren't this strong, she would not be alive. So it felt very kind of immature in his responses. Like he had no self-reflection about what he was actually saying or thinking about the scenarios that had gone on. So I just felt like it faltered at so many places. In terms of the good was really exposing me to this story of what these refugees went through, of these horrible attacks that were going on, and really giving a pretty condensed version of that, because this is so short. It managed to pack a punch of the awful things that they were going through there and the conflicts. But did I really need it portrayed in this way? No, I absolutely think that either Hussein's story directly told through his eyes or Meliknaz's story told directly through her eyes would have been a much more powerful story. So I think the choices about this book were just weird. And so I didn't love it at all. I think there was so much that was lacking here emotionally and from a characterization perspective that it was just really hard to get behind this book. So that is it for my thoughts on Disquiet by Zulfu Livanelli. Thanks so much for watching.